Alright, so I'm going to be doing a VOD review for QuirkyTurtle, a Bronze 3 Torb. This is your first season playing DPS, and you think Torb's a good um, character to start with. Um, uh, yeah, I'd say yes, mostly. If you enjoyed Torb, right, you should play him, but you shouldn't feel obligated to pick a character because you think they're good, right? Just play who you like to play, right? That's the most important thing, right? This is a game first and foremost. Like you're presumably not getting paid to play this game, right? So, yeah, just pick whoever you think is the most fun to play, especially in Bronze 3. Like I can guarantee you, your character choice is not going to make a difference at all in Bronze 3, right? But I do agree that Torb's a pretty good starter hero because he's fairly forgiving aim-wise, right? He's fairly tanky, and even though your hitbox is fairly large and like pretty easy to hit, especially because people don't have the best aim in Bronze, usually they'll still kind of miss you a bit, right? And you have extra survivability with Overload, right? So I think he's a pretty good character to start with, and he does have some pretty good perks. And I think the character is like actually really strong right now because of his perks, and he's also gotten like a ton of micro buffs prior to the season, right? So, give me 1 second here, just reading over this quickly. Right, so you're new to DPS, and you say you're looking for feedback on improving stuff. I think the first glaring issue, I won't spend too much time talking about this, is your mechanics, specifically your aim. It looks like your sensitivity is potentially too slow, which is unusual. People usually have sensitivities that's way too high, but they can't aim. But it almost looks like you're using a controller because your aim feels or looks very sticky, and like you have a kind of a hard time um, controlling exactly where you want to place your crosshair, right? I don't know if you're new to PC gaming in general or shooters in general, but just at this point, you shouldn't be looking to like. I don't think it's necessary to aim train. Just getting more exposure to the game will probably get you like 80%, 80 to 90% of the way to having like serviceable aim, right? I don't think it's necessary to go out of your way to do any of that stuff, right? But something you could definitely look into immediately is potentially changing your sensitivity and bumping it up just making it a bit faster, right? I'll show you in game what I mean by this, right? More specifically, but yeah, hopefully this is a good overview. Um, yeah, I mean, obviously, you're in Bronze. I don't expect you to have fantastic aim, and usually I shy away from talking about aim. But I do think aim is going to be problematic for you if it's not like something you are actively trying to like focus on hitting your shots a bit better than you are now. Um, right. Secondly, I think you just need to shoot more, right? There are a lot of times this game where you're just not shooting, and there are people on your screen, right? If you have someone to shoot, I wouldn't even really worry, am I shooting the right person? Like, am I shooting the tank or am I shooting the DPS or supports? I'd say, like, especially in low ranks, right? Just focus on doing your best to hit people and doing your best to shoot as often as you can when people are on your screen, right? Um, the more shot, and this also will help your mechanics, right? Because you're forcing yourself to take more shots, and you just don't worry about them being perfect, right? Torb's a fairly spammy hero. His projectiles are semi-forgiving, right? And you also have a turret. Like if you're just missing everything, your turret's still gonna get some passive value just by having little aimbot, right? So don't worry about missing too much. You just need to be shooting way more than you are now, right? Um, yeah, there's just so many instances where people on your screen, yeah, just shoot them because like even if you hit them like once, it just forces them to play differently. And if they don't, there's a chance they just don't get healed, especially in like Bronze, right? There's a chance they don't get healed. There's a chance they get hit randomly by someone else, and they just die for it, right? So like every little bit of damage makes like a huge difference because it forces them to play differently, or they just get punished. Thirdly, I think your positioning is actually decent right now. Um, Relative to where your team's standing, it's generally okay. I do like, especially on this first point, that you're taking an off angle from your team, right? I don't think it's 100% necessary, but I'll show you like how valuable this is in the replay. Um, but I just think you need to specifically work on your spacing from the enemy team, right? And what I mean by this is like you are generally speaking too close to the enemy team, which seems almost counterintuitive, right? Because Torb has a shotgun, but I think I'm not like a big Torb player, right? Um, but I think just even watching the other like high ranked Torbs, they pretty much almost never use their shotgun unless they have like no choice, right? His primary is like probably what people use like 90% of the time or something along those lines, and they're only using their shotgun against people that they're getting dove by. And when I say people, I generally mean tanks, right? Even against like tracers and Genjis, a lot of like Torbs will just still use their primary fire, right? The rivet gun, instead of the shotgun blast because it's just way easier to hit them, right? And it's just more consistent unless they're literally like 2 meters or less away, right? Because their hitboxes are so small. So really, like you just pretty much only want to use it against like really large targets or people that are like point blank, right? So yeah, you just have to do a little bit better at managing your distance and not letting people get so close. Because people, when they're close, have an easier time hitting you, right? Um, and since your hitbox is pretty big, you don't want to take that risk. And like since especially without overload, your burst isn't great because your shotgun's range is so short. You can get melted really quickly if you're just like too close to people, right? Especially tanks. Um, especially they're very survivable, right? I mean, this is just general stuff, but also playing further away will help you like scope out the map more easily and like stop you from walking too far in, right? Yeah. So with that being said, I'm gonna let this play, right? Just I'm not gonna really talk about your aim too much. Maybe outside the first fight. Just because it's kind of like beating a dead horse, right? There's really not much I can do except tell you the few things that I said earlier and what I'm about to say, just to like kind of exemplify the issues I see. Yeah, so I'm just gonna make that clear now. Here, one thing, I wouldn't be wasting your overload this early, especially when you have a Juno, because as you can see, like your overload's about to run out, right? Um, and these people are pretty much peaking at the same time you're about to be there, right? Which means you're not gonna have your overload for another 10 seconds, right? You really want to be using your overload to like survive, like dives or something like that, or to like peak with your team and like put down extra spam, right? Because it like doubles your fire rate or something along those lines. So here, this is kind of what I mean, right? Specifically with like the damage uptime thing. I don't think I'll pause too much in the future for this too. You see there are people on your screen. Try to get a little faster just throwing your turret down, right? You don't have to like put it in this perfect spot. Especially they have a Sombra. You probably don't know that quite yet. I mean, it's literally second from the team thing getting revealed, right? Just literally throw your turret down like right here, for example. It doesn't have to be too important where you put it, right? Because this covers this entire lane here, covers point a little bit, covers this lane, right? Gives you a bit of like backfire or like focus fire if they push you, right? Just kind of putting it down here. You see you're like wasting all this time, right? And in all this time, you see you could have been shooting that entire time, right? You could have just like taken away half this Ramatra's HP in the time it takes you to put this turret down. This is fine, right? This is kind of the range you want to be with Torb. It's okay. See, this is kind of where you're going too close right now, right? That was like a decent range earlier, but now you're going too close. I just want to exemplify. Like you see, that was pretty much a dead-on shot, right? And he takes like I don't know, 70 HP, right? It's his shotgun spread is just too wide. You see at this distance, you're literally doing like 10 damage now, and you're not missing per se. It's just like your shotgun spread is so wide. Yeah. It's okay, waiting to get healed, yeah. You see, like, playing this close, you're just taking a ton of unnecessary damage, because you're trying to use a shotgun blast. There is an alternative to what you're doing now. You could have just done this a little earlier, right? Because you have cover on the side from, like, literally this wall right here, and from your turret watching this angle. And if they peek main, which is where they all are now, you just back up to the safety of, like, this mini in your turret. And, your supports can also heal you. I think your Juno died really early to their Sombra, right? But you have options here, right? If I say, like, I'm pausing a lot, I apologize. I will say, like, this is what I mean when I say I don't mind your positioning overall. Because if you notice, their entire enemy team is basically focused on your tank, or where they were like a few seconds ago, which means you're taking literally no damage just from not being right here, right? And you can see like the power of just standing somewhere else, and just shooting even their tank, right? It doesn't have to be anything special, because when the tank peaks this angle here, right? Look how many people and how many different angles he has to worry about right now, right? In order to shoot you, right? He either has to sit here and open himself up to get shot by 3 players, right? Or just not shoot you at all and only fight your SIG, right? Which means you're perfectly safe just to spam, right? And that's the power of not just stacking with your team, especially your tank, right? See, like you're just shooting right now, shooting this angle, and you're getting a ton of value, right? You forced out the Ramatra, and you just got to pick just from literally spamming, shooting and spamming the angle, which is why I want you just shooting more, right? Don't worry too much about like having 100% accuracy. I will say here, I don't know if you noticed, I should have mentioned it earlier, maybe. You have like this thing where you like move your mouse a bit, right? It looks, well, at least it looks like you're moving your mouse a bit. You stop, like almost like you're moving it across your entire mouse pad, picking it up and putting it down over and over again, kind of like this. If you can see my cursor on the screen, right? Which makes me think that your sensitivity might be a little too low. I don't know if that's actually what's happening or if that's just unfamiliarity, right? With PC shooters in general, but it is something to consider, right? Maybe look into that a bit. Yeah, just play around with it a bit, right? It feels like your aim's really choppy, which is also why I said it might look like you're using a controller too. This is still good value though, right? I mean, you see, like, you're not doing anything special. You're just shooting their tank, and you're forcing him to use all of his cooldowns, right? And you forced out their Mercy to use her Valk just because you damage jumped their tank. Like, it doesn't, you don't need to, like, really worry about your target priority too much right now, right? Here, I will say, though, once they put up the shield, this is good, right? They put up the shield, rotate to a different angle, right? Just see if you can shoot someone else. You see, like that, that's what I mean right there. You see it takes you like almost multiple turns to move over to the Sombra, which might be like making it hard for you to catch these people on these like flanks, right? Yeah, I don't think I'll pause anymore. Just because I think it's pretty evident there. It's super evident there. See, you're getting really good value just by literally shooting the tank, see? Especially on Torb, you get a lot of value just from shooting the tank. This is good value here, right? See, like, you're just staying across the map and putting out damage pressure. This is good here, right? Probably could have put down your turret a bit sooner, right? This is fine. You see, just from spamming that BAP a few times, your SIG gets a kill on him. You see, literally just standing here, right? You're like totally invisible just because you're like set up in a decent angle, right? Higher ranks, you'll get punished for this just because you're too far forward. But don't worry about that too much right now. Like, what you're doing positionally right now is good enough, right? You're not stacked with your team. You're constantly shooting, right? Putting damage pressure in. Let me finish my thought before I talk about this. You're just not stacked with your team, right? You're setting up an angle for your team. You're putting out constant damage pressure, and I wouldn't say you're like hard carrying the fight, but the reason your team won that fight is because all the damage pressure you put down, right? That's a successful fight right there. Obviously, it could have been cleaned up a lot, but literally just by simply moving to a slightly different position in your team and constantly shooting, you got a ton of value, and I think you carried, but not necessarily hard carry. That is, the distinction isn't super necessary, but you're definitely the reason your team won that fight, right? And the reason you start losing fights later on is because you're not shooting enough, right? Again, don't worry about too much about aim. You can just pick an angle a lot of times as Torb and just consistently spam the angle and get a ton of value, right? Here, I don't like this ult. They don't have to walk into it at all, right? Well, one thing with Torbolt, if you stack it in the same spot, you see how you're like launching all the ult in the same spot, it doesn't do extra damage. You want to spread the ult as far wide as possible, right? So you cover as much area with it, because again, it doesn't like stack and do extra damage. It would be funny if like you just put it all in one spot and did like 2000 DPS or whatever it would do, just insta-kill people, but unfortunately that's not the case. Right, for starters, spread it out more. Secondly, you're generally waiting for the enemy team to commit to a position before you do this, right? You see, when you use your ult and they're all in this space here, they have a lot of options to move out of the way, right? The Ramattra can move to the right, he can move back. The BAP can literally just move away, right? The Sombra isn't even close, and the soldier's flanking, right? So, like, it's very easy for them to avoid this. An alternative you could be looking to do with Torbolt, right, is, like I said, wait for them to commit to a position, which basically means wait for them to walk through a choke point, right? So like doorways are pretty much like the most obvious choke points in the game, right? Let's say like their Amatra walks through this choke point here, right? And it's like here, for example, like attacking your brig. What you could do in this, like if he was doing that, is use your ult behind him, and then like ult here, and then like ult here, for example, so he can't just run you guys over. And then he gets stuck in the middle of your team, and the rest of his team can't like keep walking in to shoot the team, right? You effectively, by doing that, make it like a 4v1 against a Ramatra, and he just like is forced to block or he instantly dies, right? Another opportunity to use Torbolt would be against like certain, especially support ultimates, right? Like Kitsune Rush from Kiriko or like Juno's Orbital Ray, right? You can just put it in the path of wherever it is, and it just kind of denies their entire ultimate just by like either forcing them out of it or forcing them to take, I don't know how much DPS it does, like 200 DPS or whatever it is, from trying to use it, right? So here, I'm sure you can see like it's very easy for them to avoid it, right? So you're getting a ton of value literally just by shooting the tank, right? You're forcing him away because you're just constantly shooting him in the head, right? This seems like really simple stuff, but it's very valuable. Maybe a little too close, right? This Ramatra can just turn on you and start punching you, but this is fine here, right? You see, just literally by not stacking with your team, not sitting main, you were able to like just live. You took literally no damage there, right? Unfortunate, right? They just ran over your team. That's okay. It happens sometimes. Obviously, a lot of things you could have done better. I wouldn't worry about that, right? I think the setup was pretty good, so. Where I will say when the soldier pops his ult, especially when he has a shield, you should be looking not to even peek him, right? One thing you can do, I would generally speaking rewind, but the replay viewer is still having some problems with me. It'll sometimes really like crash me out of the game. When you hear him pop his ult, right, literally just like you can just AFK behind a wall and just not peek him, right? So he can't shoot you at all. Alternatively, right, if you know he's shooting your team, right, if you hear him actively shooting, he's not hitting you, you can jiggle peek like this, right? Just keep peeking out and shooting him and try to spam him out just over and over again. If you get too low, you just pop overload and just hide behind the wall, right? Yeah, you're just in no danger of dying, but kind of running in, like, I'm sure you can see you just instantly die from that, right? That's okay. Pretty avoidable death, right? I'm sure you can see in retrospect. If just waiting there would have been perfectly fine. One thing you can do, you notice the Sombra's kind of like ruining your team. Just throw down your turret, like for example on the Mega or something. Because either she engages into the turret, right, and the turret provides extra DPS to whoever she's attacking and forces her out early, or just kills her outright if she overstays her welcome, or forces her to destroy the turret first, which gives your team and you a chance to kill her or just force her out, right? That's a good shot right there, right? She kept shooting her, got it really low. Still a little too close again, right? You saw they're all here. You see you're like in the shock, like way too close now. But this is good, right? I still like that you're not stacked with the team. See again, literally by not walking in directly with your Sigma, you're just able to like do a ton of damage, right? You indirectly killed that BAF there. Here again, right? Your entire team's basically dead here, so you're kind of overextended. You probably should have tried to get out a bit sooner, right? Or just died with your team so you didn't stagger. This is okay, right? You still live. You see the soldier on the left? That's a better time to shoot him, though. This is a pretty good turret spot, I will say. Like you might be thinking like your turrets weren't getting a ton of value earlier. And I think generally speaking, right, because when they have a flanker, you just want to put your turret in the back line somewhere, like I said, so the flanker's forced to deal with the turret, right? Just put it the turret. This is a pretty decent spot, right? Because your back line's gonna be playing right here-ish, right? And they're always in range to get shot. Or the flanker's always in range to get shot by the turret, right? If you just put it in the open against their comp, right? You know, they're on Soldier or Ramatra, Baptiste, they can like insta kill the turret, right, if it's just exposed. So it's fine here, right? You know, a bit of missing, right, but you're still getting good value. Because you did hit him some. Like I said, just because you're not with your team, you know, not directly stacked with your team, not getting shot. Because they're giving you a lot of opportunities to like do damage, right? Okay, so normally I'd skip through this, right? But I think this round went well because, you know, you set up an angle that was different from your team. You know, you're controlling the left side of the map pretty much all around, right? And I think you were pretty good with shooting the entire game, right? Obviously, there are a lot of instances where you kept shooting, and there were a lot of like silly deaths. But I think that round went fairly well, just because you're kind of doing those things that I said you need to like focus more so on, right? And specifically, when I say those things, I mean shooting more and staying further away than you are now, right? There were definitely times where you got too close, and there are definitely times where you could have been shooting more, right? Yeah, but still overall pretty good. Obviously aim, right? Something that'll come with time, right? I don't think it's necessary to like hyperfixate on that right now. It's fine, right? Don't worry about like putting your turret in the perfect spot. You see, because you're like wasting time trying to put the turret down, 2 people on your team died. Unfortunately, they're probably gonna die regardless, right? But there is a chance where if you're just shooting that soldier like a second or 2 earlier, you hit him in the head and force him to hide, so he doesn't get killed, or he just sits in the open and gets spammed down by you anyways, right? You could just, for example, put the turret in here, or you know, in this room, right? Put it with your brig. Don't worry about it too much, right? Like I said, against these like range characters, they can easily destroy it. Like it's not too threatening. This is good, except for the fact that, you know, you're not using your primary fire. Just you're looking at your perks, right? So here, this is what I was talking about earlier, right? When you put down your turret, it'll give you an indication of where their flanker is when they destroy it, right? So like the Sombra just wasted her hack on your turret, so you should know, like you had your turret here, you know the Sombra's in this area here, this general area here, right? Ideally you'd be shooting her as she's destroying your turret, but you should know that the Sombra's close to you, and if you isolate yourself, you're gonna get picked off, right? Yep, and you can see like that aim issue right there. Like it looks like you're taking like multiple like rotations with your mouse almost to like rotate over to the Sombra. It's definitely going to be a problem, you know, as you continue to rank up. So that's all right though, right? The main issue is that you just didn't react to the Sombra and just like isolated yourself too far from the team, right? The difference between that and on first point is that on first point, right? You'll just have to imagine again. Unfortunately, I'm not going to rewind because of the bug. If you got like hacked or engaged by a Sombra, you just walk back and like to the right a little, and you're with your team, right? But now the difference is that like your team all walk through this doorway onto point, and instead of going with your team, right? Right, you could have continued to play here, for example, right? You have the Mega, your team can still help you because they, you know, you can see them here, right? You decide to walk all the way through here, and you can see based on the position of your team, right? They're roughly where your sig is right now. You just kind of isolate yourself for like 5+ seconds, going on this really long rotation, right? Which is problematic. Very problematic against the Sombra. This is good, right? Good. See? You hit that soldier once, like your aim doesn't need to be perfect. You hit him once and your May kills him, right? That's just even one shot is super valuable. Good shots on the Macho, right? Cover usage could have been a bit better, right? Distance could have been a bit better, right? Once you see the Ramatra there, you can keep backing up. I really want to focus on that. Once you see the Ramatra here, right? If you just backed up for a second, you see your brig is down here right now too. Just keep backing up and baiting him further in, and you just get out of his range so he can't punch you, right? And your brig has more chances to heal you, right? So that's kind of the big takeaway there, right? But I think overall it was decent. It's okay, right? See your sig here. You see your team is here again, right? One rotation you could be doing is going through this building here, just pretend the Sombra isn't there, right? And just playing this angle over here, right? It's similarly to like the first point, right? Where you just were playing the left side the entire time and you just had like free spam on them because they didn't look at you at all. Rather than just stacking this angle with your SIG, right? You see you're stacking at them too much and it kind of is like making you eat unnecessary damage, right? Now you're kind of making the same mistake, you're like hard flanking. Definitely a problem here, right? If you're kind of getting too close, you see that they're already set up right here on point. Once you go past this choke point here, right, you're just kind of too committed because they can block off your retreat, right? You had opportunities to shoot and you're just kind of flanking, right? This is not the time to do it. Your entire team's dead. When you don't shoot people, right, it gives them opportunities to run into you, right? That's definitely another opportunity cost of not shooting a lot of times. Could have tried to shoot that Sombra a little sooner, right? Looks like you're reading text message or something. Again, right, you see your entire team is lower. I don't know why they're all going lower, but you really should be going with them, especially when they have the Sombra. It's a really bad engage by them, but it's kind of your only option. That's alright, I think the reaction speed on the Sombra is pretty good there, right? Obviously could have been a bit better, but it's okay. Sometimes you miss, especially when she is an element of surprise, right? Just the primary takeaway is when you know they have a Sombra, don't split from your team that much, right? When you go on flanks, you're just kind of guaranteed to lose most of the time.
I've got you in my sights.
Okay, yep, good shot. It's okay, right? I would be looking to like shoot them as they walk in a bit, right? Like right now, this would be a good time to start shooting. And alternatively, you could have been like taking this angle up here sooner, right? Something like this, you know, spam them as they come in. Because if you remember, on the first point, right, when you're spamming the Ramatra as he was walking in, you like did a ton of damage to him and really slowed them down. That's generally speaking what you want to be looking to do every time they try to rotate through a choke point, right? Yeah, it's okay if you're like not sure exactly where you can stand and get away with it to like play passive, but that's alright, right? Here, this soldier was shooting at you from the right side for like 3 or 4 seconds. You should have responded to him a bit sooner, right? Just ignore your turret, let him kill your turret, and try to kill him in the process, right? I don't love being down there in the first place. Your angles just kind of suck, but that's okay. It's another problem of like not peeking their team earlier.
Let me assist you.
Unfortunate, right? I would say I didn't have the opportunity to watch the third round, but I'd imagine it's going to go worse because, or about the same as this round here, because you start like not doing what you did so well in the first round, right? And specifically, like you set up at a really good angle, right? First round, and you were fairly consistently shooting from a safe distance, and you put in a lot of work, right? You just didn't do that as much as second round. Yeah, so I apologize. I actually tried watching this round here. I fast forwarded and it crashed me out of my account. So, yep, that's why I didn't watch it. It's okay here, right? Just beware of the Sombra. Don't be so afraid to peek, right? You know, you're fairly tanky, so you can definitely peek that corner a bit wider, right? Look for better targets. See, I don't really find healing the turret very effective. Because it just gets destroyed really easily, right? I think you're better off using your turret as bait and just like shooting whoever's attacking, right? That's okay though, right? I don't think the setup was necessarily bad.
Turning up the heat.
I'm fired up right now.
You're looking for the soldier, I guess, maybe. You see that soldier top left, right? Yep, I think Zomber's a better target here because she's closer. Unfortunate, right? Probably really should have killed her, but that's okay. I do like that you swap targets to the better target, right? Sombra's way closer, way easier to hit because she's not taking cover at all, so that's okay. You know, you can't win every single 1v1. It's not gonna happen.
Olive brine is a secret recipe.
Burning the bellows.
Obviously, a lot of micro things you could have done better there, right? I wouldn't sweat it too much. You're right. You see the Ramatra to your right? It's kind of dangerous to go do this. Because they could easily just do this, right? You see the soldier, it's still high. I'd expect people to be where they were last fight, right? Almost died there for it. This is fine here, right? I do like that you didn't run into him this time. Again, too close. You see, get closer to tank. He just kills you really fast, right? Maintaining your distance is like really optimal in Torb, right? And I think like earlier on, even the mistake you made when the soldier was still high ground, you just walked into him. You just got way too close and made yourself really easy to hit. Right? I'd be looking to deal with this Sombra first. Oh, okay, I wasn't paying attention to the round timer. I guess you had no choice but to run forward there. Okay, so yeah, like I said, I think I'll say your primary issue is that you're just not shooting enough, right? You see, there were a lot of opportunities this game, especially on rounds 2 and 3. But you had targets and you could have started shooting them, you know, just spam them. You don't have to necessarily worry about having 100% accuracy. Not even like highlighted moments in this game where you hit people even one time and your team just killed them anyways, right? Like that, literally, that's all it takes sometimes, right? Um, just get in the habit of always looking for targets to shoot and just like doing your best to spam them out, right? Secondly, right, I want you to be playing a bit further back, and just being in the range where you can confidently like spam angles in particular with your primary fire, right? Your rivets. Um, and not within your shotgun range. Like I'm sure you could see, like even when you're pretty close, the shotgun spread's just so huge that it's really inconsistent. And just like playing safer near cover, further back and closer to your team, it's just more valuable. And just hoping to spam them out and just like take angles that way, right? And then again, right, there are things you could do with your aim. Like I said, your sense looks a little slow, and it looks like you're like struggling to turn around and deal with people that are to your sides and behind you, right? That's definitely something you can look into, right? Um, I don't really have any more advice than that than to just practice more, right? Definitely looks like you're fairly new to using, you know, FPSs, so this is something that's going to take time, unfortunately, right? It's not something I can just tell you like analyze and say, you know, if you just stood here, you'd be so much better, right? But yeah, I hope this helps.